Okay, now that we know the goal as well as why we have it, how does somebody actually achieve and maintain 0.1 phosphate and the related level of nitrate in the tank without the constant use of phosphate removers? The answer is simple. The levels drift out of your zone, match the food input to the export or filtration. That could be as simple as water changes. If 10% a month or a week isn't cutting it, try 15% and so on. This can be achieved completely with water changes alone and no other filters. This is particularly valuable in a smaller tank like a 12-gallon dice or 40 breeder. The cost of salt is immaterial to the cost of gear if a bucket of salt and 10% weekly water changes last 1 to 3 years. All the gear is designed simply to reduce the dependence on water changes because they represent manual labor and maintenance tasks that we would like to avoid. First, if it makes sense, just feed less. Don't starve the animals, but if 20% less food would go unnoticed, then try that. Also consider changing what you feed. Frozen is less nutrient dense because of the water content. So for newer reefers, frozen's a lot harder to overfeed than pellets. But also consider that some foods have way higher phosphate to nitrate ratios than others, so you could try changing it. For example, many shrimp-based options without preservatives will have very little phosphate. However, something like a silverside will have very high phosphate because of the high phosphate content in the skeletal structure of the fish. For that reason, foods with fish meal that have ground up bones may be higher as well. The point here isn't that any one of these foods is better than another, only that you try something else if you don't like the natural ratio it produces in the tank. Use it for a month and see where the tank lands. Try an auto feeder. Auto feeders are notorious for causing nutrient problems because you end up feeding too much, but they can also be the opposite. Count your fish, decide how many pellets you want to feed a day, then set up your auto feeder to feed that many. It won't be perfect, but it will likely be more predictable and easier to adjust than randomly throwing some food in. A protein skimmer does that by removing the food before it breaks down entirely, tunable by both performance adjustments and quality, but also simply by the number of hours it's on if it works too well. We'll have an entire episode on protein skimmers, but the gist of it is, if you want to pull out more poo, a DC option that has tunable flow and air pump will help you do that in the widest array of tanks, including your own tank's journey from a few fish to many fish and the related food input. The Air Aqua from MaxSpec being both mine and William, who cares for these tanks, favorite skimmer that we've used. A filter slock or roller also works, but to be frank, it might be something you use in the early stages of the tank where coral uptake is small, but wean off of as the corals grow and require more organics. It's my personal viewpoint that with the right flow or suspension techniques, that filter rollers can be more effective than a skimmer because they capture a lot of that waste before it's broken down at all and remove it effortlessly. The problem is if your approach to nutrients includes a lot of organic particulates, that felt roller may strip them out too rapidly. There are always ways around that, and there's some betters than others. It's no surprise that 52SE will have a complete felt, pad, and roller episode as well. An algae scrubber or refugium is also near a complete solution of its own. Most people who run an effective scrubber or fuge will never worry about elevated nutrients, and arguably the easiest way to achieve that goal. These two approaches based on algae growth, uptaking nitrate, phosphate, are also one of the best solutions for those who want to maintain elevated organic nitrogen and phosphorus particulates or dissolved organics for the corals to capture and really only care about eliminating that excess nitrate and phosphate. Guess what? 52SE will also have a complete video on our updated knowledge on scrubbers and fuges as well. Carbon dosing, which is yet another organic method of reducing nutrients via bacterial growth. In this case, I would personally gravitate to an actual system based on carbon dosing rather than just throw carbon dosing knee-jerk into what I'm already doing. Zeovet being the most time-tested and robust approach, Red Sea's NO3PO4X and Reef Care another popular but looser guideline option. Carbon dosing will of course have its own 52SE episode as well, all of these things deserving their own complete look. Next episode, the second biggest source of pollutants and maybe the most toxic, freshwater and RODI. I'm certain that 90% of reefers are using them for the wrong reason. Everything that we've learned since 52 OG, when you're done, you'll say, how did I not know this about something I thought I knew everything on? That and the entire 52SE playlist right here.